Alright guys, so for today we're going to review the special right triangles 45, 45, 90, and 30, 60, 90. The front side, they're all 45, 45, 90. It's asking me, pay attention. So it's asking you find the missing side lengths. Let me emphasize again, plural. Give me two answers, not just one. And leave your answers as radicals in simplest form. So once again, the front side is only 45, 45, 90. As a reminder, let me come over and let's talk about the rules. Let's say that's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. The two sides, the two legs, they're equal. So if one of them, let me call it x, whatever that is, the other side is also x, right? The two numbers are equal, the two side legs. Now, for me to get the hypotenuse, given the side, for me to get the hypotenuse, I'm going to multiply by radical 2. If I'm going backwards from the hypotenuse to the side, instead of multiply, I will divide. And this little note, if you guys want to write it on your notes, go for it. I know we finished the unit this Friday, but we have these questions on the final in June. So if you want to remember then, I suggest you guys include it on your notes as well. All right, so looking at question number 1, I know the two sides are equal. So I'm going to say y is 5 radical 2, right? Because those two are equal. For me to get the hypotenuse, in this case x, I'm going to start with 5 radical 2, which is what was given, and I'm going to multiply it by radical 2. I know radical 2 times radical 2 is radical 4, which is better known as 2, times 5. I'm going to call that 10. So once again, the two sides are equal. To get to the hypotenuse, multiply by radical 2. Let me erase this really quick. Let me take a look at question number 2. This case, I'm given the hypotenuse. So remember, if you have the side, you multiply by radical 2. Since I'm going backwards, let me divide. So for V, I'm going to go 9 divided by radical 2. Since we cannot have radicals at the bottom, let me multiply top and bottom by radical 2. So on the top, 9 times radical 2 is 9 radical 2. Once again, remember back in letters, if you had 9 times x, you just write 9x, because you cannot combine it. So 9 times radical 2, since they cannot be combined, just write 9 radical 2. At the bottom, radical 2 times radical 2 is radical 4, but then the square root of 4 is 2. So that's V. 9 radical 2 over 2. For U, I'm going to say 9 radical 2 over 2, right? Because those two are the same. So once again, the two sides are equal. To get to the hypotenuse, you multiply by radical 2. There you go. To get to a side, you divide by radical 2. All right. Any questions on the front? Number 4. Number 4, I'm given the hypotenuse. So to solve for y, I'm going to start with radical 2. But in this case, I divide by radical 2. Radical 2 divided by radical 2 is 1. And I'm going to say x is also 1.
So is the bottom one always going to be equal to the one that's not the hypotenuse?
The two sides, so not the hypotenuse, but the two sides, they're equal. Yeah. The two sides. Any other questions from the front? Yeah. 10. All right, looking at question number 10, I give you guys the hypotenuse. So to solve for A, one of the sides, let me write what we have to begin with, 2 radical 6 over 3. This case, let me divide by radical 2. When it comes to whole numbers, 2 over 3, that is just 2 over 3. Nothing to do. When we look at the radicals, radical 6 divided by radical 2, we can combine that. 6 divided by 2, I'm going to call that radical 3. I have no radicals at the bottom, so I'm good to go. Now for B, I'm going to have 2 radical 3 over 3. Remember, I divided the radical. 6 divided by 2. Yes. When we divide, we put it at the bottom. If we multiply, we put it on top. But I'm dividing, so I put it at the bottom. Number 6. All right, looking at number 6, I know y is 3, right? Because the two sides are equal. For the hypotenuse, x, I'm going to go 3 times radical 2. And that's it. No radicals at the bottom, so I'm good to go. My radical is simple. Okay. All we're doing is, sides are equal. To get to the hypotenuse, you multiply by radical 2. If you're going backwards, divide by radical 2. Any other questions from the front? Number 5? 5? Looking at number 5, I'm going to have to divide by radical 2. So I have, for x, I have 3 radical 5 divided by radical 2. When I look at my radicals, 5 over 2, there's really nothing I can do. So the way I'm going to get rid of the radicals at the bottom, let me multiply top and bottom by radical 2. On the top, I have 3 radical 10, because I multiply my radicals. At the bottom, I have 2. My whole number is 3 over 2. They're as simple as they can be. So that's my answer. For my y, I'm going to write 3 radical 10 over 2. Because I know they're equal. So, any other questions for the front side? First 16. Top and bottom, yes. By radical 2. See how on the top, radical 5 times radical 2 is radical 10. At the bottom, radical 2 times radical 2 technically is radical 4, but we know the square root of 4 is 2. Thank you. Which one? 7? Okay, to begin with, for number 7, we know b is 3 radical 10 over 5. So I'm just going to go for the easy one first. Now for a, I have to go 3 radical 10 over 5 times radical 2. But then I get 3 radical 20 over 5. Radical 20 can still be simplified. Remember when we do the tree diagram, 4 times 5, 2 times 2, the 2 goes out, the 5 stays in. So I know radical 20 is 2 radical 5. So let me change this for 2 radical 5. Now on the top, I have 3 and 2, they're whole numbers. So I can multiply that. 3 times 2, I'm going to get 6 radical 5 over 5. All I did was multiply the top by radical 2. But once again, radical 20 can be simplified. Let you see we're good.
Where'd you get the 6?
3 times 2. The 2 and the 3, they're both whole numbers. Make sure any radicals you have, make sure they are simplified. We're good on the front there? Okay, now for the back, looking at question number 17, we have our 30, 60, 90. So let me write my rules at the side. Here's 30, here's 60, and here's 90. I want to start with the small side. That's the number I want to have, the small side. Obviously, your triangle's a little rotated, but that's the one I want. From there, to get to the hypotenuse, I multiply by 2. Obviously, if you're going backwards, then divide. From the small side, to get to the long side, multiply by radical 3. Obviously, if you're going backwards, divide. So looking at question 17, I have the small side. So to get to the hypotenuse, I have to multiply by 2. So I have 7 radical 2 over 4 times 2. That is 14 radical 2 over 4, better known as 7 radical 2 over 2. Right? My 14 over 4, I call it 7 over 2. I simplify your fraction. Once again, from the small side to the hypotenuse, multiply by 2. Right? 2 times 7 gave me 14 on top. But then 14 over 4 is better known as 7 over 2. Right? Simplify your fractions. Now, to solve for y, I'm going to start with 7 radical 2 over 4. In this case, multiplied by radical 3. So I have 7 radical 6 over 4. 7 over 4 is simple. There's nothing I can do. Radical 6, there's nothing I can do. So that's it. Once again, from the small side to the hypotenuse, multiply by 2. From the small side to the long side, multiply by radical 3. And if you're going backwards, divide. Let's take a look at number 18. I want to get to the small side. If I had the small side to get to here, I multiply by radical 3. So since I'm going backwards, let me divide by radical 3. The cool thing that the radicals cancel out, so I just get 2. From the small side to the hypotenuse, multiply by 2. So I'm just going to call it 4. Remember, from the small side to the hypotenuse, multiply by 2. From the small side to the other side, multiply by radical 3. Right. Any questions? Yes. 22. This is the hypotenuse. So to get to B, I have 16 radical 3 over 3. Let me divide by 2. So let me put my 2 at the bottom. We can look at that as 16 over 6, which is just 8 radical 3 over 3. Right? 16 over 6 is 8 over 3. Now to get to A, I have, to begin with, I have 8 radical 3 over 3. I have to multiply by radical 3. So I have 24 over 3. Are you guys seeing? I multiply my radicals times 8. 24 over 3 is better known as 8. Number 20. Okay. The 24, because I multiply my radicals first. Radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, better known as 3 times 8. 24. Angel, I forgot which one you said. 20? Alright, number 20. We're given the hypotenuse, so to get to the small side, divide by 2. So I'm going to go 5 divided by 2. That's as simple as I can go. Well, I'm going to leave it as a fraction. Now, to get to U, I have 5 over 2 times radical 3. There's nothing I can do, so there we go. Right. Any other questions? Yeah. Which one? 31. Did it go that high? Okay, so 31. To get to x, the hypotenuse, I have to multiply that by 2. So to begin with, I have 5 radical 3 over 3 times 2. So I'm gonna call that 10 radical 3 over 3. Right, 10 over 3, there's nothing I can do. Now to get to wide, starting from the small side, 5 radical 3 over 3, I have to multiply by radical 3. So on the top I have 15, the bottom I have a 3. 15 over 3 is 5. Okay. Any other questions? Like I said, today, since we're just reviewing this part, you know, the front side was just 45, 45, 90. The back side was just 30, 60, 90. So I separated the two. Tomorrow, these two types are called special right triangles. So tomorrow, we're going to do the same thing, but they're not going to be separated. They're going to be mixed. But it's the same idea. Once again, any questions? Let me take roll really quick.